We share the same kind of pain. We don't need words to understand each other. For me, Bassam is a leader. I look up to him. I admire him, and I take a lot of strength out of him and my other brothers and sisters, Israelis and Palestinians, members of this unique group of ours, which is known by the name of the Parents Circle, the Israeli-Palestinian Bereaved Families for Peace, which is probably the only organization on earth that does not seek new members. New members. My name is Rami Elhanan. I'm 72 years old. I'm a graphic designer living in Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem, seventh generation. My mother was born here in the old city of Jerusalem, an ultra-Orthodox Jewish family. My father came to this country in 1946 after spending 1 year in Auschwitz. He was very badly wounded in the 48 war. She was the nurse that took care of him, and this is the reason why I'm able to speak to you right now. I am a Jew, I'm an Israeli, and before anything else, I am a human being. And the story I will tell you this evening starts and also ends on one particular day of the Jewish calendar, which is known by the name of Yom Kippur. You know, Yom Kippur for the Jews is the holiest day of the year. This is the day where you ask forgiveness for your sins. On this day, 47 years ago, I was a very young soldier fighting this horrible October 73 war. We started it with a company of 11 tanks. We finished it with only 3. I've lost over there the desert of Sinai and across the Suez Canal some of my very close and best friends. And I came out of this war very angry and bitter, disappointed young man with one determination: to detach myself from any kind of involvement, from any kind of commitment to my own business. I got out of the army. I went to Bezalel Art School to become a graphic designer. I got married. I had 4 kids. And 37 years ago, on the very eve of Yom Kippur, September 1983, my daughter was born in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Her name was Smadar. The name Smadar is taken from the Bible, the Song of Solomon. It means the grape of vine, which means the opening of the flower. And she really was a very sparkling and vivid and joyful and energetic little girl. She was very beautiful. She was an excellent student. She was a swimmer. She was a dancer. She played the piano. She was amazing. Everybody used to call her the princess. And we lived a very good life in our house in Jerusalem. My wife, which is a professor for education in the Hebrew University, my 3 boys, and this princess. It was seemed to be the perfect sheltered, protected lives. In so many ways, you could say that we put ourselves inside a big bubble, completely detached from the outside world, minding our own business. I was doing graphic design for the right wing, for the left wing, whoever paid me. And life was very comfortable. This went on until about 25 years ago, on the 4th of September, 1997, just a few days before Yom Kippur. It was the first day of school. This bubble that we were living in was blown up to millions of pieces. 2 Palestinian suicide bombers blew themselves up in Ben Yehuda Street in the center of Jerusalem, about 5 minutes walking distance away from here. They've killed 5 people that day, including 3 little girls. One of these girls was my 14 years old Smadar. It was Thursday afternoon, and the beginning of a very long, a very cold night, which continues until today. At first, when you hear about the explosion, you keep hoping that maybe this time this finger will not turn towards you. And gradually you find yourself running in the streets trying to find her. She completely disappeared. You go from hospital to hospital, from police station to police station, many long and frustrating hours Until eventually, very, very later that night, you find yourself in the morgue, and this finger is stuck right between your eyes, and you see this sight, which you will never ever be able to forget for the rest of your life. Then you come back home, the house is filled with thousands and thousands of people coming to pay respect, to offer condolences. These are the 7 days of the Jewish mourning period. It's called Shiva. And you are kind of enveloped by these thousands of people in a very clever traditional way that is designed to ease your passage from one kind of life to another. On the 8th day, they all go back to their normal everyday businesses. Suddenly you are left alone. You need to wake up. You need to stand up. You need to face yourself, and you have to make a decision. What are you going to do now with this new unbearable burden on your shoulders? What are you going to do with this anger that eats you alive from within? There are only 2 ways to choose from, and the first one is obvious. When someone kills you, 14 years old little girl, you have only one thing in your head, and this is to get even. When someone punches you in the face, the automatic response is punch back. This is the normal behavior of human beings. This is the way most people choose, the way of revenge and retaliation, this way that creates this endless cycle of violence. But then after a while, you start to think, we're human beings, we're not animals, we can use our heads. You start asking yourself questions. Will killing anyone will bring her back? Will causing pain to someone will ease this unbearable pain? Well, the answer is certainly not. So, in a very gradual and complicated process, you come to the other option, which is much more difficult. Trying to understand what happened here. Why did it happen? How could such a horrible thing take place? What can cause someone to be that angry, that bitter, that hopeless, desperate, that he's willing to blow himself up with 14 years old little girl? You have some kind of connection to yourself. You have some kind of responsibility. And then the most important question of them all. What can you do personally in order to prevent this unbearable pain from other people, from other families? Well, it's not easy, it takes time. It took me almost a year. Foolishly enough, in the beginning I thought that I could go on with my life, pretending as if nothing had happened. Trying to lead a normal life, but nothing was normal anymore. I was not the same person anymore. And about a year later, on some occasion, I met a big man who changed my life completely. His name was Yitzhak Frankenthal. He was a religious Jewish guy, with a big kippah on his head. And you know how we tend to put people into drawers, and we stigmatize people, and we judge people by the way they dress, and I was certain that this guy, Yitzhak Frankenthal, was a fascist and a right-winger, that he eats Arabs for breakfast. I prepared myself to fight him. We started talking. He told me about his son, Aramin, a soldier who was kidnapped and murdered by Hamas in 1994, and about this organization that he created of people who lost their loved ones and still wanted peace and searched for peace. And I remember that he was one of these thousands of people that came to my house during the 7 days of mourning a year before, and I went crazy. I was so angry with him. I asked him, how could you do it? How could you step into someone's house who just lost his daughter and talk about peace? How dare you? And he was not insulted. He just invited me over to watch a meeting of this group of crazy people. I got a little bit furious. I said, okay. I went to see, it was 24 years ago. I was standing aside, very detached, very reluctant, and very, very cynical, as I always am. And I was watching the people coming down from the buses. And from the buses came down people that for me, as an Israeli patriot, were always living legends. People I used to look up to them. I used to admire them. I used to look up to them, and I never ever thought that one day I will become one of them. People who lost their loved ones and still searched and fought for peace. And then I saw something else, which was completely new to me, to my eyes, to my mind, to my soul. I was standing there watching the Palestinian bereaved families coming down from the buses, walking towards me, shaking my hand for peace, hugging me, crying with me. And I was so deeply shocked and so deeply moved. You see, I was 47 years old at the time. And until today, I'm ashamed to admit, it was the first time ever in my life I have met Palestinians as human beings. Not as workers in the streets, not as terrorists, not as transparent people, as human beings who carry exactly the same burden that I carry, who suffer exactly like I suffer. And I was so moved by this. I remember seeing this old Arab lady coming down from the bus with this long black traditional Palestinian dress. And she had a picture of a 6-year-old kid on her chest. Exactly like my wife carried the name of our daughters, Madari, on hers. I'm not a religious person. I have no way of explaining what happened to me back then, 24 years ago. All I can tell you is that from that moment on, until today, I devote my life to go everywhere possible, to talk to anyone possible, people who want to listen, people who will not listen, to convey this very basic and simple message which says we are not doomed. This is not our destiny to keep on killing each other in this holy land of ours forever. It's not written anywhere. And we can change it. And we can break once and for all this endless cycle of violence and rebellion and retaliation. Unless we talk to each other. It will not stop unless we talk. I believe deeply that one can teach himself how to listen. I believe that once you are able to listen to the pain of the other, you can expect the other to listen to your pain. And then, only then, together start this very long journey towards reconciliation, maybe some kind of peace in the end. It's a very long and bumpy road, no shortcuts. But this is the only way possible, because the other way leads to nowhere. And the price of the other way is unbearable. So this is what we are trying to do at the Parent Circle. My brother Bassam here beside me, and the 600 families, members of this unique organization. We bang our heads against this very high wall of hatred and fear that divide our two nations today, and we put cracks in it, crack after crack. And through these little cracks, a little light comes in, and a little light can drive away a lot of darkness until we will put those walls down, because the alternative is over. And we have an enormous ally on our side, which is the power of our pain. And you should know that the power of pain is tremendous. It's very much similar to the nuclear energy. And like this horrible energy, you can use it in order to bring pain and death to people and darkness. And you can use it in order to bring light and warmth and hope. So we go around the country, we go from high school to high school, we talk to Israeli kids and to Palestinian kids, and we tell them that our blood is exactly the same color, that our pain is exactly the same pain, and our tears are just as bitter. And if we who have paid the highest price possible, if we who have every reason on earth to want to kill each other, if we can call each other brother, anyone can, anyone should. Thank you very much for listening.
So my name is Bassam, and I'm a Palestinian. And this is not my guilt. I found myself as a Palestinian, born to a Palestinian family. I born in a cave, very elite cave in fact. In a small family, we are 16 brothers and sisters only. It's considered to be a small family in Palestine. It's very difficult to grow up under strange occupation as kids. Strange people that they don't look like you, they don't speak your language, and you don't know why they come to your village, to your neighborhood to control your life. Simply we hate them You don't need to go to school to hate those strangers. I noticed at that time that they become crazy when they see the Palestinian flag, and I don't know why. So with other 4 kids at the age of 13, we create a local military group, we call it, and we start our struggle by raising the Palestinian flag on the trees around our school. It was a crime at that time, even until yesterday. If they catch you, you go to jail for 6 months to 1 year. Maybe they will shoot you and kill you. But because it made them crazy, this was our mission. This is how we start to fight against them. At the age of 16, we find some old weapons in another cave. I become familiar with caves. We found 2 grenades and other military materials that we don't know how to use it. But 2 of my friends throw the 2 grenades to the Israeli patrols, soldiers in our village near Hebron. And of course, in that time, no one killed, no one injured, because they don't know how to use it in a professional way. At the age of 17, we have been arrested. So the first one did 21 years in jail, 19, 15, 14, and I had 7 years. I learned in jail, if you know your enemy, you can defeat him or you can kill him. If you only hate him, you will kill yourself. So I started to study Hebrew to know how to kill Rami in that time. A few months later, I watched a movie about the Holocaust by chance. I hope you hear about the Holocaust. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Because there are people who never hear about the Holocaust, even today. Imagine. And they are not very far away from here. They are here. We don't know anything about the Holocaust. What I know about the Holocaust in that time, that someone called Hitler, I don't know from where this Hitler, killed 6 million Jewish people, but it's a big lie. So you never think about it. But what happened that I understand this movie is about Hitler and the Jews, and I want to enjoy seeing this movie as kind of revenge, to see someone torture those Jews, kill them, arrest them, occupy them, at least because I am in their jails. What happened after a few minutes, suddenly I found myself crying in sympathy with those innocent people. I said to myself, it's just a movie and nothing like this in the reality. Because it's against the human being's nature. I'm a very simple man. I don't expect to see such atrocities. I decided that I want to understand more about this big lie. If it's really happened, or it's just a movie, because I want to understand the brutal behavior of the Israeli soldiers when they come to my village. It's unbelievable. They have no difference between kids, women, teachers, professors, whatever. And I say to myself, even if it's a big lie, if they watch such a movie, then they come to my village, they will act in this way. And even if this thing happened to us, to the Palestinians, maybe we will lose our humanity and we will act in this brutal way. Means, even in that time, at the age of almost 18, I have no idea what happened to the Palestinians in 1948, which we call it the Nakba, or the catastrophe, or the creation of Israel. Never. In fact, it's very difficult to research about the Holocaust in jail. We don't have the resources even. But before 10 years or 11 years, I make my master's degree about the Holocaust in Bradford University in the UK. Then after that, I start to visit death camps in Germany. For me, it was like a tool to know your enemy in order to know how to defeat them. Then you find yourself in a different place. Then you understand that if you know more, you act better. If you don't know, simply you don't know. And always it's good to agree with yourself, with your narrative, with your history, with your story. And if you start to know, you will start to suffer because you cannot keep silent. I go back to jail, it's a long 7 years. Briefly, we are the bad guys for them. You know the bad guys for the Americans? Everything bad. And they are the good guys. And for us, they are the very bad guys, not bad guys only, and we are the good guys. We are the chosen people. We are the freedom fighters. They are not our example. We are not going to lose our humanity like them. We need to keep our humanity. Again, because we are freedom fighters. It's not hatred, it's not revenge. We are soldiers. It's very simple. So their goal is to kill our humanity every moment because we are the bad guys. And our goal is to survive and to keep our humanity in order to continue our struggle. You never broke down, never, ever. You just became more determined to continue your army struggle against this brutal enemy, and it's for humanity. I get released in 1992 after 7 years, and I still believe in the army struggle way. 93, suddenly we have peace in one day, Oslo Agreement, or Oslo Protocols, if you heard about it, between PLO and Israel for the first time, and we start to see the same killers, the same bad guys. They become generals in the Palestinian security forces, I mean the Palestinian prisoners, and negotiate and coordinate with the Israeli generals who arrest them 20 years before. It's unbelievable. What happened here? So I start to ask myself, so why I spent 7 years in the Israeli jails? For what? Just for Arafat and Rami to shake hands, to meet my jailer after 7 years, and to negotiate with him? I never thought about it. Then I start to ask myself, why they didn't make it like 10 years before, 20 years before? At least I'm not going to be in jail, and they will save thousands of lives, Israelis and Palestinians. Then I discovered as that more than 100 years we are trying to kill each other, to defeat each other, in spite of Israel, with the United States of America, with the rest of the world, again, according to the Palestinians, against the Palestinians, but we forget to die, we're still there. More blood, more pain, more victims, and the result, just as I said, just more pain. In fact, in that time, most of the Israelis and the Palestinians, I remember, they support this agreement, and we thought that finally we will start to live in peace. And we start to think in a normal way even. So I get married. I thought this is the normal thing to do at that time. Then, in fact, I discovered that I put myself in the other jail. We call it the golden jail. But forever with my own hands. Then suddenly I have 6 kids, really suddenly, which is worse than the Israeli occupation. It's a lot of responsibility. But I decided that my family, they became my Palestine, my Eretz Israel, my promised land, and my goal life is to protect them, to educate them, to raise them up in a normal way, because finally we have peace. This is what I thought. My son will never go to the Israeli jails because he wants to raise the flag or to throw stones because he don't know. I am here, I know how to teach them. This is what I thought. In fact, I start to be active in my society in the Palestinian side without any connection with the other side. Until 2002 and 2003, I hear in the Israeli media about something called refuseniks. It's more or less like veterans for peace in the States, if you hear about them. Ex-Israeli soldiers and officers from elite units, from different units, from elite families, who refuse to serve in Palestine or in the occupied territories because they love Israel. This is what they say. Because they don't want to take part of this illegal and immoral occupation to another people, because it's against the Jewish values, and they are Jewish people. Because it's against the Zionist values, which is very strange for the Palestinians. You know, Zionist with values, it doesn't work for us. So I decided that I hope to meet them to understand why they refuse to continue occupying us. In fact, until 2005, by chance, after 2 years, We had the first meeting between 4 Palestinians, ex-prisoners. I was one of them with 7 ex-Israeli officers. Rami's son was one of them. This is how I get to know this noble enemy in 2005. And you can imagine the first meeting between the real enemies. We know each other, we hate each other, and we did our best to kill each other physically from both sides. It was the most difficult meeting in my life. Briefly, it takes 1 year meetings. We became 300 members from both sides, all of them ex-enemies. At the end of this year, we create a movement. We call it Combatants for Peace. And our slogan was what Nelson Mandela says. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you need to work with your enemy. Then he became your partner. It's not only to talk to your enemy. In fact, we start to work together to prove that there is a partner on the other side. This was our goal. In fact, 2 years later, on the 16th of January 2007, an Israeli border police shot and killed my 10-year-old daughter, Abir, in front of her school from a distance of 15 to 20 meters. In her head from the back, she was with her sister and 2 other girls. 9:30 in the morning, Abir fell down, and 2 days later she passed away in Hadassah Hospital, where she born and where Smadar born and died. Between Abir and Smadar, it's 10 years, but it's the same killer, the same criminal who take off the lives of our daughters. It's our common enemy. It's the Israeli occupation. And this is what we believe. If there is no occupation, we don't need to kill each other. We don't need to fight each other. In fact, after 2 hours, I received my brother Rami and his wife, because we know each other 2 years before, and more than 30 Israeli families who stay with me 3 days in the hospital until Abir passed away. And that night we have like a press conference, and I said, I don't ask for revenge. And I believe that we need to double our efforts to achieve peace, especially now, because at least I have another 5 kids. I want to protect them. If the worst happened, I wish Abir will be the last victim between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And if the worst happened, I am not going to give up. I will follow them in the court, even after 100 years. But unfortunately, they will close the file because lack of evidence. This is what I said. 2 days later, Abir passed away, and after 4.5 years, the Israeli Supreme Court decided that the mother have the right to know the killer of her daughter, but because it's 4.5 years, and because lack of evidence, we closed the file. In fact, it was word by word. So this was in the Israeli TV, what I said, even my daughter was still alive, and the decision of the Supreme Court. Only the Palestinian victims and the Israeli judge know the answer in advance. For that, the mass majority of the Palestinian victims, they never approach the Israeli legal system, because I said, no one is guilty, we have no killers. In fact, what the Palestinians believe, that it's not a crime to kill a Palestinian in the Israeli system. And the Palestinians said, we never ever saw an Israeli soldier be punished because he killed a Palestinian, ever, except one soldier before 3 years ago, because he had been filmed, and there is a Jewish Israeli witnesses, and he go to jail for a very long time, for 9 months. In fact, I met the victim who killed my daughter after 3.5 years in the Israeli court here in Jerusalem. It's 2 miles from here. And I said to him, I need you to know that you are not a hero, you are not a warrior. You didn't kill the enemy or the terrorists. You just killed 10 years innocent here. And if you think it's okay to kill my daughter, you can enjoy your crime. I don't ask for revenge, because I don't take revenge from victims. For me, you are not less victim than your victim. But in any day in your life, if you come to ask me to forgive you, always you will find me there. I will forgive you, but it's not because of yourself. In fact, it's because of myself. Because I really love my daughter very much. And because I have another 5 kids. I don't want them to grow up as victims to you. And you are a victim by yourself. 2 days later, in fact, after I lost my daughter, I joined the Parent Circle because I know Rami before. I'm familiar with this noble organization, but in my worst dream, I don't want to join this amazing group. As I said, we are more than 620 families, Israelis and Palestinians, who decide to come together, in fact, because we love our kids. And we have the moral authority to raise up our voice and to say no more killing. And we want to prove that we can be partners only. We don't need to love each other. We don't even need to like each other. I still love you. But we need to respect each other. Always I said, you can enjoy hating me forever. In the end, you will have heart attack. Just respect me. My right to exist, my right to live in peace and security. I will respect yours, and it's up to you. You can hate me. But because we belong to the mankind, because we are human beings, we prove that we can be partners, we can be friends, we can be brothers, and in our case, we can be family. I want to say that we need to share this land as 1 state or 2 states or 5 states. Otherwise, we will share it as 2 big graves. Our kids, our families, and our people. The Israelis will never give up their safe place after 3,000 years of their history of slavery and discrimination and anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. And I don't see the Palestinians after 3,000 years from tonight. We will never ever accept the Israeli occupation or the Israeli control or whatever you call it. We must be free. Thank you very much for listening.
We have a secret agreement between us that all the difficult questions will go to you.
You see, occupiers, there is no mercy.
You can ask any question, political, personal, whatever comes to your head. You know all the answers by heart. Please, have no mercy. Please.
I don't know if this is difficult or not, but what can we do?
In the end, I will answer. I promise. This is the most important question.
And this is his department.
What language do you speak to each other? Do you speak Hebrew or Arabic?
Yiddish.
We speak Hebrew and Arabic.
Okay.
Mainly Hebrew because Rami shy to speak Arabic. He understands almost everything, but he's scared from me to speak Arabic.
Yeah.
Salutations. I'm curious. Has there been any pushback against your group from any groups or people?
Meaning against the current. There is a huge respect for people like us in both societies, people who have paid the price. The minute you open your mouth, it's a different story, and it's very, very difficult. Some people find it unbearable, the very sight of us together. Some people cannot accept the equality of the color of the blood. And when we get into high schools, some people demonstrate in the event in order to prevent us from getting into the high school by saying that we are poisoning the minds of the kids. And this is true for both societies, mostly in the Israeli society. So we believe that the worst already happened, and this is a mission that we have to fulfill. So we keep on doing it.
Thank you for answering the question.
What about your families? How did your families respond to this work?
Muslim family, they are Arabs. We give orders and they follow us. especially to our women. You know, we said like death is not painful for the dead people. We have tragedies after that. One of them was with my 13 years old son. When he lost his sister, he was 13 years old. In spite, even in that time, Rami, like his uncle, in our home, but he escaped from his school 3 times, at least to throw stones. He wanted to take revenge. You don't understand. So imagine for 4 years, I have the feeling that I am going to lose this kid because he wanted to throw a stone. And it's very easy, they will shoot him and kill him, and he is a terrorist. It takes almost 4 years to teach him, to convince him that this is not the way. And luckily, after 4 years, he joined the parent circle. And then I said, finally, I made peace with myself and with my son, which is enough. Even he found to himself a partner on the Israeli side in his age, and they start to give talks and to travel around the world to talk about their experience. And by chance, his partner, his name is Elhanan, Rami's son, by chance. My wife, she has a Jerusalem ID, she lives all her life in Jerusalem, in Sheikh Jarrah. After combatants for peace, we started to visit them, they come to visit us, and with a lot of Israeli friends. When it's happened, I remember she wanted to hear that I will pass away, and she said to me, now there is no peace, that's it, it's over. So I told her what to say to those people, and she said, those people are my brothers and sisters, but you are not going to talk about this. Of course, in that time I understand that, and after 1 week she joined me here in Jerusalem to meet over than 500 Israelis to pay respect and to offer condolences. She is the real hero because she became the father and the mother, and most of my life, most of my time, in fact, outside the house, even if it's like this in the meetings, or outside the country. And luckily she still cook for me.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and being with us. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the work that you're doing within Israel and Palestine. I mean, you talked about visiting schools. Are you also lobbying the government or approaching military people? How are you trying to spread the word here in Israel and Palestine?
We have a wide range of activities, all of them designed to put these cracks in the wall. The most important activity is the lectures, high school dialogue meetings like what's happening now. We talk to thousands and thousands of people during the year, which is a very effective way to change minds and hearts. We also conduct an educational system which is called the narrative group, in which we bring together Israelis and Palestinians, which are not bereaved, on a very common background, like lawyers, like teachers, like guides or lawyers. And we bring them to a session of 10 meetings in which they learn how to listen to each other. They go together to places like Lifta, which is the monument of the Palestinian Nakba, and then they go together to Yad Vashem to learn about the Jewish Holocaust. It's not in order to compare the two events, but in order to understand the origins of the pain. And this is a very, very powerful. We have more than 1,000 alumni of these groups, which are our ambassadors in the ground. They keep in touch, they create work together on the ground, and we are very much proud of it. We have a very strong women group, which combines the women of the parent circle. They do activities together each year in the International Women Year and so on. The last project that they did was preparing a book of dried flowers for Kamala Harris when she was appointed to vice president. The flowers came from the graves of their sons, which was very symbolic. We also had a summer camp for our kids, and every year we bring together Israeli and Palestinian kids. At first you could see that they are reluctant and keep distance. At the end, they don't want, you can tell them apart and they don't want to separate. These are very, very powerful activities that are, all of them are to put the cracks. Yes.
So we have heard a couple times now, I think, that like in the Israeli society, like the majority of people doesn't want to make peace. So it's actually like a minority position to want to make peace with Palestine. I'm wondering, in the Israeli society, does the majority of people consider the situation as it is right now sustainable? Like, do Israelis, regular Israelis, think this is like how a good situation should look like with all the checkpoints and different ID cards and everything we heard?
Lucky we look at you.
Well, I think you could also ask the same question maybe on the Palestinian side. Maybe the framing is a little different because it's an occupied place, but right, I think there's probably people on both sides who...
But my question was definitely to the Israelis.
I know, but I would be interested to hear the Palestinian perspective too.
Okay, we will split. You will talk about Palestinians.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe you should talk about the Israelis.
We went crazy. If you ask people on the street, each and every one of them, you approach them, ask them, do you want peace? Of course I want peace. Everyone wants peace. Are you willing to pay the price of peace? That's another matter. And after years and years of brainwashing system, of seeing the situation of one people dominating another people as natural, it's very hard to get into the heart of the Israeli public and find ear that are willing to listen. Most of the Israelis are not paying any price for the continuation of the occupation. Most of the Israelis are sitting in their coffee houses and living their lives. They don't care, they don't want to know what's happening 200 meters down their noses. The Israeli media cooperates with that, and the whole system is like ostrich, put their head in the sand and ignore reality. Few people and more people understand there's something basically very wrong here, and we are sitting on a time bomb. But most of the Israelis are ignorant, blind, and not sensitive.
Always I was saying, if you kill the ethics in Ramallah, you will kill the same ethics in Tel Aviv. This situation lost their basic ethics of everything. For the Palestinians, I believe the mass majority, it's different than Israel, of course, because we are under the brutal direct occupation. So we, of course, we want peace, we want to live in peace and security. But as I said, as long as the occupation continues, we will continue to fight. Because we are human beings. I wish sometimes that we are like the French people when Hitler came to Paris. They said, oh, it's okay. We will leave, just don't destroy Paris. It was very nice. It didn't happen here. And you cannot escape because you will defend your life, your kids. So in general, and I believe, by the way, the same majority in Israel who don't support peace today. As I said, everyone wants peace, to pay the price of peace. If they have some hope that they will live in peace, they will agree. But it's a very complicated network in the media, in the leadership. Imagine Netanyahu must mention the Holocaust 5 times a day. As I pray 5 times a day as a Muslim. It's the victimhood mentality. It's the fear. If we don't, like in one day, if we sleep, that's it. The Arab world surrounded us. They will come to eat this. Blunt people. They are thirsty to drink our blood. And the people are scared. And always I said to the Israelis, believe me, we are not going to throw you into the sea. Because simply every Jew today in the world, you are swimming, so you will come back. There is no point. Israel is a very big state, but they scare from people who don't have salaries even. It's ongoing fear, because it's ongoing victimhood mentality.
Yes, please.
Which media outlets do you believe on a regular basis have a more objective, broader view of what's going on?
Fox News.
No, in fact, it's a tragic situation. Just pay attention to what's happening just today. What's going on with the Ukraine. The mobilization of vast media attention. Everybody is looking at it. The Palestinians are fighting for their independence for more than 100 years, and no one cares. The price that the Palestinians are paying for the continuation of the occupation is no less than what Russia is doing in the Ukraine, even more. But the Ukrainians are white and Western.
To be honest, they are most beautiful than us.
So the world media is highly problematic.
If we were to follow a local media, who might we want to pay attention to? Oh, it would have to be in English, though. You know.
Well, I think today we are in an era that lets you choose your source of information. The internet opens, and you can get pictures, and you must look for people like us to choose.
This is always like our media is the blood of our kids, unfortunately. This is our media, our tragedies.
I'd like to follow up on the media situation, because I've also heard a couple times that the Israeli media is kind of all going the same direction with the view to the conflict. Would you say that Israeli media is free though? Like, is there some sort of state oppression or state influence on media messages, or is Israel a free and liberal democracy, including free media?
Why you attack him? I don't know.
Same question.
Israel is not a democracy in the sense that Israel is controlling the lives of millions of people without any democratic right. Israel is not a democracy in the sense that the people of Israel, from day one until you die, are brainwashed. I'm looking about myself. In my story, I told you that I was 47 years old when I met my first Palestinians. We are subject to a poisoning minds process of every little kid from the kindergarten, which is based on the victimhood mentality. We carry on our backs 3,000 years of victimhood. It's not an invented victimhood. It really happened. It's under our skin. It's in our blood. The fear, which is always there. Not only that, we are the only ones who are allowed to be victims. And we don't allow anyone else to be a victim. We send our our kids to Auschwitz when they are 16 years old to learn how to be victims. When they come back draped with the national flag and the slogan, never again. And the next year they find themselves in the checkpoints. And this 18 years old kid has to make a decision whether this old guy can towards him is a time bomb or just a grandfather, which is unbearable, inhuman, and considered in the most eyes of the Israelis a natural situation. So the victimhood mentality is the essence, and it combines the media, it combines everything all around in creating a front that will enable us to defend ourselves against destruction, as we had before. And we keep on forgetting that we are a nuclear power, that we are the 10th most strongest army in the world, army that have never been fighting a war for the last 30 years. The army is fighting kids throwing stones or rockets that create no damage. And most of the Israelis are incapable of seeing it, including the media.
Well, what do you do to change the victimhood narrative? I mean, on one hand, you have to accept it because it's real, it happened.
We gave a personal example, and I tell them in every class that I speak that victimhood stops here with me. I will be the last victim, and I will not use my victimhood in order to victimize other people.
Can I add something here? I met Wade, and Wade is the wife of. At that time I was a journalist, and I wrote a big feature story. The biggest newspaper was published at that time in the Arab world. It's called the Shock House. And I was impressed. I was impressed because actually Reed is the daughter of a general, one of the important generals of Israel, like Rami, said that. And at what time this person, he signed on an appeal to end the occupation. That was the end of his, at least, profession, by the way. But this is not the story. The story is that when their daughter died, Benjamin Netanyahu called Moed in order to give her his condolences. The answer of Rami
He was classmate of hers.
yes, he was a classmate of her. She told him, "You are responsible for what happened in Moed." That's what she told him, you know. And she told me that until her daughter was killed, she had never stepped to the eastern part of Jerusalem because always she felt that this is an occupied territory, and she didn't ever want to feel that she is part of this occupied system. I can tell you a lot about this interview. It took a big page. But what I want to say, because you asked about the media and ethics and so on, all this could be changed with one thing. You need a wise leader. What Elhanan, what Rami didn't say, is that in Israel, I can talk also about the Palestinian side, there isn't a wise leader to say what we are doing. Today we have been at the Holocaust Museum, and remember that at the beginning my colleague was saying, let us face our back to what happened, or how they lived, you know, no matter the Jews were secular, religious, and so on, and to see what happened. Today, what is going on in Israel is not destroying only the Palestinian society, it's destroying the Israeli society itself. And really, that's what very few people are seeing. It's not the time of prophets, by the way, but at least some wisdom.
You forgot to say about Moed, my wife. You asked about my family and the less active member of my family. My wife, Nurit, is a professor for education at the Hebrew University. She's the laureate of the Sakharov Award on behalf of the European Parliament for the year 2001 for her peace activity. And she's very famous she's an expert for school books. She writes a very famous book, which is known by the name of Palestinians and Israeli School Books, which was translated into 12 languages, in which she shows the educational system in the school books that enable a young Jewish kid to pull the trigger and kill 10 years old. And I'm very proud of that.
Any other questions, my dear friends?
Yeah, what can we do? How do we help?
Okay, this is what the $1 million question.
Okay, this is really the most important question of the all. What can we do? What will be the message that we will take out of this meeting? What will we dream about tonight? What will be the action that we will take tomorrow morning? If you remember, I told you that my late father was an Auschwitz graduate. And 75 years ago, while they took my grandparents to the office back in Europe, the free and civilized world stood aside, never lifting one finger. And today, while these two crazy nations are massacring each other without any mercy every day, while this genocide is taking place in Syria, while people are drowning in the Mediterranean like flies, while the atrocities in the Ukraine, everywhere else, and the free and civilized world is still standing aside, doing nothing. Now, standing aside while a crime is being committed is also a crime. We don't ask you to be pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. This will not help us. We demand of you to be pro-peace and to be against injustice and against this ongoing situation in which one people is dominating the other. This is the essence of the problem. It can be changed. It must be changed. And I will finish with a message of a Jew. And I am a Jew with the utmost respect to my people, to my history and my tradition. And I will tell you that ruling and oppressing and humiliating and occupying millions and millions of people for so many years without any democratic right is not Jewish. Period. There are not two ways about it. And being against it is not anti-Semitism. If you get into an argument, you can quote.
What is his name? Rami Elhanan.
I'll tell you what you can do. You can choose to read the book, a paragraph, or spread it around. It tells our story in the most fantastic way. You can get into our website, which is theparentscircle.org. Read more stories like ours. Read about the vast range of activities. And when you get to the end of it, to the bottom of it, there is a round button that says donate. You can push it.
And the most important thing, don't keep silent. And this is what Martin Luther King says. He said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends.
Mm-hmm.